Thankful Thursday, and it's boundaries.
Yes, we love boundaries.
Yes. Boundaries of steel. Now, who was talking about that? Brene Brown.
Yes.
She talks about boundaries of steel.
She does. Actually, that moment when I heard Brene Brown say the most compassionate people have boundaries of steel was like a life-changing moment for me.
Me too. Me too. Absolutely. Because you thought if you were compassionate and one of the things you did was that you pandered almost to everybody else's needs.
Yes.
And you completely worn out and pummeled by everybody else's rubbish that they were throwing around, and you ended up with it. But actually, no, put those boundaries in.
Exactly. Yes, but I also think because of the fact that there's the spiritual practice that we participate in, and the spiritual practice teaches love above all else. It teaches forgiveness. It teaches, seeing the best in people and all of that. So the missing piece for me was the boundary piece, because I would be forgiving people and loving them above all else and looking for the best in them and giving people second chances, third chances, fourth chances. And actually, we should have just done the Maya Angelou. When the person shows you who they are the first time,
believe them.
Yes.
Believe them. That's right.
Yes.
And actually, the most compassionate thing to do for people is to say, no, that's not okay. That is you're pushing up against my boundary, and I don't accept that in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I probably could have lived quite a different life for 45 or 50 years because of that. Honestly, it was probably only 10 years ago that started really resonating, and I think that's probably when Brene's research really came to the fore. She was so funny too. You must look her up, because she didn't really want her research to be talking about this stuff.
No, she didn't, did she? She was like, no, this is not what I want to be finding out about. And I love how open she is about like having to go to therapy to deal with it.
That's right. She didn't want to be a sort of a social researcher in this sense. She was being really practical and gathering data and yeah.
And then this wasn't what she was expecting to find.
No.
But,
And I suppose actually, living an intentional life means putting those boundaries in. I think about finding my lovely husband,
Yeah.
I had a few relationships before that.
Yeah.
And that getting your own needs met felt like something that you weren't supposed to be focused on, because if you're in a relationship, love above all else, so you're going to love that person. But that can turn into accepting things that aren't very good for you in the attempt of love. But actually, by putting boundaries in, and, probably in other times you'll hear about me talking about this, but, I made a list of, in my next relationship, I want someone who...
Yeah.
And that was kind of my boundaries.
Yeah.
I needed someone who had, I know you might resonate with this, who had an adult relationship with his mother.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because, it's hard. All of us have sometimes more difficult than other times with our mums and dads. But I suppose it was from some of the past things that I've been going through. I felt that, they were either being a child or trying to parent their own parent, and actually just needed to have an adult relationship with the parent, and that's, something I probably worked on with my mum. But that was part of the boundaries.
Yeah, and I think it also shows you, though, like the type of relationship people have with their family and their parents shows you how they were raised and all that kind of stuff. If you have to parent a parent, then that tells you something. And if the parent is still parenting that person, then that tells you something too. And really, you just want a healthy adult.
yeah, and we all dip to side out of
Absolutely.
that. But, that's one of the things by making that list. I'd created some boundaries of the type of person that I wanted to spend my life with.
Yeah, and I think there's also just that whole piece of self-care. And I think for women, we are raised to be very nurturing, we are raised to be very giving, we are raised to be very kind and compassionate to other people, and actually put other people ahead of ourselves. But you've got to fill your own cup first and look after yourself. And I think that's definitely one of the things that I have had to learn and again, through relationship, and it was interesting, I was having this reflection the other day, which is, like I might not have always had relationships that have lasted forever, but they've taught me a lot. And if you re-flip the whole concept of failure, so, because I think I was teaching a failure class or something. Never give up, it's in my never give up class. Yes. But that whole, Thomas Edison spent 998 attempts before he got the first light bulb, right? And every attempt he was just learning something new about whatever he needed to get to. And I think that that's the same in our human relationships, is that every attempt but every relationship, it's not necessarily a romantic one, you are learning what's okay and not okay, and what's the contrast that you're willing to tolerate, right?
Yeah, which is that establishment of those boundaries, isn't it?
And then you get to the point where you get to the 998th relationship and boom, you found the light.
Okay.
Well, maybe not that many tips, but like it's just the process of like learning and revisiting those boundaries, because life will push against your boundaries, and we've got to be willing to revisit them too, right? Because there might be some things where I have a boundary around a certain thing, but is that actually a healthy or reasonable boundary for me to be? And someone might be inviting me to explore my boundary, because the other class that I was teaching, my expansion class, is around like moving beyond the boundaries of who you think you are, because we do have this, and even in the Michael Singer Untethered Soul book review that we just did, we build the house.
Yeah. So your thoughts and your approach to life creates these solid boundaries, which may not actually be useful to you anymore.
Yeah. So there's like the boundaries which serve, and then there's the boundaries which no longer serve, and having the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
And that can be the hard part.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's the daily practice, isn't it? And I suppose that's just one of the reasons why we do yoga every day is that just brings us back onto the mat to move our bodies with our breath to get back to closer to who we are.
Yeah.
So that all those boundaries that aren't needed anymore can dissipate and disappear, and that we can actually go forward into our day as this bright, bubbly person who loves wildly and expects miracles, but is not going to have people who are going to do, we're not going to have those people in our lives that aren't serving us, aren't doing good for us.
Yeah, exactly. And there's that whole freedom from drama. Like, I think,
yeah,
and other people's drama too. Like,
you might have found friends, that you don't see so much anymore.
Yes, and even I know Brene Brown. She in some of her talks about how she has conversations with friends, say before a party. I think she gives an example of a friend who was a drinker, and she's like, look, I really want you to come to my party, I want you to be there, but you need to understand that I don't want people getting drunk at my party, and you've got to think about that, because you do sometimes get drunk, and it's not really what I want for this party is for you to be coming and getting drunk, or anyone else for that matter. So you're welcome to come, but you need to understand that you come on those terms. And just having those everyday conversations with your friends and with your family about, look, that's fine, but these are the terms of that engagement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is in a partnership as well, that, some things are fine, but on other days you actually say, well, no, actually, we need to do this together, or I have to do that, or whatever. So there's that negotiation, but part of it is the communication, I suppose.
Yeah.
And going back to the beginning is actually knowing what your boundaries are, where you're setting yourself at the moment.
Yeah. And what's acceptable for you. So, and then that comes down to really like knowing yourself, and knowing what you value, and knowing what's important to you, and actually knowing, do I really want to be partaking in other people's, because some people do want to partake in other people's drama, or I know for me I had to learn not to be a rescuer, so and that's a hard lesson to learn, because it's like, I want to save people and rescue them and
make their life all better.
Exactly, but that's their job, right?
Yeah.
And I do a lot of coaching in the business world to primarily women in business who are leading teams of people, and the phenomenal thing, even with the men that I work with, is teaching them about boundaries. Like if you're running a team of people, your responsibility is to hold the boundaries of what's okay in terms of acceptable and unacceptable behaviour. And going back to that Brene Brown point is actually you have to have those boring conversations with people on the daily. Like I've got when I'm deep diving with a team at the moment, and I'm working very closely with a team leader, and her and I, with some of the people on the team, we're talking to them daily. Right.
About
those boundaries,
because that's new for them, and maybe the first time that anyone's ever actually said, well, in our workplace, this is what happens, and so we're not having any of this, but this is what happens.
And so it means you have to have a lot of chats, because people are like, well, you're resetting the boundaries for me. Yeah. And there'll be some people who don't like it when you put boundaries in place. And there'll be some people who, if you haven't had boundaries in place with them before, they'll try to remind you about how life used to be and wasn't it good.
Because it was in their mind good. Well, and this is not how it used to be, and it feels a little uncomfortable because it's changed.
Yeah, because you're not giving me everything I want anymore. Like, or you're asking me to stand on you're asking me to pay for myself, or whatever it might be. The boundary might be that you're putting in place. So there's the interpersonal, like looking after yourself, but then there's actually, if you are running a team of people, there's that responsibility for keeping everyone on the team safe and aligned with the vision that a lot of managers just don't do very well, and it is that consistent. I am the guardian of the boundaries. I am responsible for how people turn up. I'm responsible for how they behave. I'm responsible for how they perform. And so that is the key task really of that manager. But then if you take that manager's job and you put that onto yourself in your own life, it's the same, isn't it?
That's right. And it's kind of life isn't a dress rehearsal. Today's the only day we're going to have that's like today, this moment. So that if you're waiting for something to change before you do that, I need to be, a little bit older, or my job needs to be better, or I need to find a perfect partner or something, putting that off is not really helping you in your life, because there is only this moment. And so, the moment is now. That's right.
It is now. And then even boundaries with yourself. Like, that whole, if you go back to our first value, commit then be disciplined. Like, the moment is now. If you want to change your life, like I'm on a chat and there were all these people saying, I want to lose weight. And I was like, cool, here's a hot tip for you. I don't know how many of them have implemented, but it's if that's what you really want for your life, then are you willing to put the boundary in place? Are you willing to
make the discipline of keeping to that boundary?
Yes. Yeah. Because if you really want it, then you will be. You will put that boundary in place, and you will be the guardian of that boundary. And that's, I think, really that how people will treat you the way that you let them treat you.
So today's Thankful Thursday was boundaries. So, as usual, we're interested in knowing what you have taken out of this discussion, but also how boundaries might have affected you in your life.
Or even lack of boundaries. Like maybe this is a moment where you're like, we had our Brene Brown moments where we're like, whoa, boundaries of steel.
The most compassionate people,
And then it's all of a sudden, oh gosh, now I need to put some boundaries in place. But but you might be having that same aha, and it's like, and like commit to that moment of realization and say, I need to put a boundary in place about my spending. And I'm going to write a budget, and I'm going to make sure that I save $100, or I'm going to pay off debt.
Or I'm going to actually get my shoes out and put them by the door tonight, so that in the morning they're there, so I can go for that walk that I've been promising myself to go on every morning for the past month, year, whatever.
Yeah.
Decide to commit.
Yeah, and be disciplined. and be the guardian of those boundaries, because the boundaries will hold your life in the lane that you want your vision for your life to be. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.